911, what's your emergency?
He's acting crazy.
Ben?
Ma'am?
What's up?
Sure this is the right place?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Egbon podcast, where we have candid conversations with migrants or children of migrants who are doing very well in their careers in the hopes to inspire the next generation of dreamers. Today, we are joined by the incredible creative director, performer, and filmmaker from Colombia, Miguel Hernando Torres Umba.
Oh, I love that. You learned the whole name.
Thank you, Miguel, for joining us.
Thank you, cousin.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Miguel is a creative force who's been performing and doing his thing for the past 18 years. His work has been featured on the BBC, at the National Theatre. He's worked with Gecko Theatre and Secret Cinema, with whom he's done over 20 shows.
Yeah.
As a creative director and a performer. And he is the star of the new Paramount Pictures horror flick, Primate,
in
which he plays
Ben,
the
the
primate.
primate.
Before we continue with this incredible conversation, I would kindly ask you to like and subscribe. It's important for the channel to grow, so please do it. I just thought that we had to have you on the podcast. Of course, we have a personal relationship, personal-professional relationship as well. I'm a big fan of your work and the kindness of your heart.
Thank you.
And I was like, we got to talk to you.
Oh, that's great. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Of course. All right, so as we always start, where were you born?
I was born in Bogotá, Colombia, which is a country in South America, for those who don't know.
How's that experience growing up in Bogota? What is it like? What are the
Yeah.
smells and the sounds?
The sounds and the smells of Bogotá. So first of all, I was born at the south of the city, sort of in the outskirts of Bogotá. And back when I was born, the neighborhood where I grew up was only 5 years old. That means that there was nothing there before my parents arrived. So my parents arrived with a group of other migrants, internal migrants from Colombia, looking for a place where they could start building their houses. A priest, happened to be bought this piece of land, which then he sold very cheaply, like allotments for people around the country who needed to have a new place. So as a way of like forming a new community, and they started the neighborhood from scratch. And this is literally a piece of land right at the outskirts of the city where there was no water, no electricity.
Wow.
There was nearby. So what they did was then they dug their own sewage. They stole water from somewhere. They got electricity. They posed. They formed it from scratch.
That's incredible.
So the whole thing began like that. So the smells of the environment that I remember is of a neighborhood that is just evolving purely from the mud, from nothing.
Wow.
And that meant some of the streets didn't get pavement until a few years later. Even the street I was born in, where my house is, my mom's house is, only got pavement done last year.
Wow.
And that's been 46 years later, 40 something. I forget the exact number, but I'm 38 and the neighborhood is only around 6 years older than I am. So it's so I grew up in that environment, an environment where there's a group of resilient people just shaping up a community, trying to get by, like just discovering the world, really. Lots of these people, we were from poor backgrounds, but they're trying to figure out what they can do. And then also many of them didn't have many possibilities outside the neighborhood. The neighborhood is also quite far from the city center where everything happens. So for anyone to go and get to work there, because of the traffic, it could take an hour and a half, 2 hours in a really heavy traffic. So there was this challenge constantly of like, if you want to make something happen, you have to get into the city.
Right.
But then that's quite challenging to get there. So that means a lot of resilient people, a lot of like marginalized communities, but also lots of life and dreams and wanting to get out and wanting to discover the world, and a lot of potential, happening. That's what I remember.
Wow. Very hands-on.
Very hands-on.
Yeah.
Yes, I helped build my house.
Yeah.
And dig the foundations of my father's house and my mom's house, and build the rooftop like it was part of a community thing. My granddad was also a builder, so we built it with our own hands. So
And it's basically what you're still doing creatively.
constantly building. Yes, that's why I always refer to that story, because it hasn't stopped. It's always
Yeah.
been.
What's life like in Colombia? What do you eat? Yeah, just want to hear a bit
So
more about that.
Colombia, it's a very, very rich country in terms of its resources, but also in terms of its culture. So right at the center of the world, like next to the equator, to the country Ecuador, but also by the equator line, which means that we don't have seasons per se. So it really depends on where you are in the country, how high up in the mountains you are. The temperature is cold, which means there's different types of produce, but also as you go down and out to the beaches or like lower areas, very different type of produce, more tropical. We'll have the Pacific coast and we have the Atlantic coast. So we are bathed by the two oceans. We also have the start of the Andes, so the whole mountain range that goes all across South America begins in Colombia. So in fact, Bogotá is part of that mountain range. That richness allows for every sort of fruit and produce to exist, and that's very rich. So we get it from all over the country. When you go there and you taste a banana, or you taste a plantain, or you taste a tomato, like the flavors are just so rich. You can't
rich and
believe it. Like
intense.
I'll invite anyone who's lived in the UK or in Europe all their life to just visit somewhere in the tropical countries and taste
Yeah, it's very.
how beautiful a fruit can taste. So that's we get that, all of that. And also it's very diverse because Colombia was colonized by the Spanish, and the Spanish brought slaves from Africa. So then there's a mixture of African communities, indigenous communities, and European communities.
Right.
So we got this melting pot of flavors, which, well, it was our luck. That's what happened to us. But at the same time, it's made us really rich. So in Colombia, you dance music that is very much Afro-inspired. Like you will see African rhythms. Salsa in itself is a rhythm that starts with the drums. But in the Pacific coast, you just see communities, African communities, literally,
Wow.
Afro-descendant communities. We're very proud of our Afro-descendant music, so we all dance. We're all very good dancers. We love moving. We love celebrating. We're very loud. We have this kind of energy, but it's also mixed up with indigenous traditions and connection with the earth and connection with like nature and plants and ancestral wisdom. And of course, it's got the European parts of it, which is like, accordions and other type of instruments, but also all the Western civilization taking over and sort of shaping it, and unfortunately at times pushing the indigenous and the Afro down. But the light is so lively, and I think that's what happens. Colombians are very, very fiery, very lively, very passionate.
Yeah.
Yes, everything is in extremes, everything is big passions. But at the same time, very rich and very generous people.
Yeah.
I think people are very
Well,
humble.
I can see that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is this where performing came into play for you? When did you get into performing yourself?
Performing came to me when I was 8 years old, or probably before through my family. But when I was 8 years old, again, the neighborhood where I grew up, there wasn't many other opportunities. There wasn't much to do for a young kid or for teenagers. There wasn't many options. There was one library in the whole borough, which was quite far from where we were in terms of we had to walk at least an hour to get to a library. Parks were very limited. There was a lot of organizations coming from the country, but also international organizations bringing funds from charities around the world to run social projects. So I was part of one of those social projects, which was funded initially by some German funds, which now I understand. Back then I just
You didn't
know.
know?
They
Yeah.
didn't know. They just turned up. And it was a group of nuns. So it was a group of nuns who brought this cultural project. And we were given dance lessons and theater lessons and music lessons. So all of it was around Colombian traditional folklore. So I learned to play Colombian drums, which again are very African-based. We learned to dance Colombian traditional rhythms, which again are very mixed from all of the cultures that I've been talking about. And performing, we mainly focus on street performing, street theater. So those were my first kind of like understanding of performing arts. The teachers that we had came from theater companies in the country who were specialized in doing street theater. And so a lot of what we did was very much on the street, catching the audience attention.
Very immersive.
Very immersive. There you go. That's exactly how you make immersive theater. You have to make the audience stop.
Yeah.
And we used to perform in Bogotá's anniversary. So every year where there was like a celebration of the anniversary of the city, there was this big parade in the center of the city, and we took part of so many of them. So each year I would be on stilts or with big masks and different colorful costumes, and it was great. And that was between 8 and 16 probably. So that kind of brought me very straight into the heart of performing. And I had very generous mentors and teachers at the time.
Yeah. And when did that's amazing. I mean, we all need it. That's what every kid
See.
needs, that kind of outpour and generosity and support. And when did the switch happen? When did you decide to do it professionally? How did things move in that
Well,
direction?
it's funny because I think since I joined that group, it made sense that that was the world I live. I wanted to inhabit. And like many other kids in the neighborhood, I chose to go to the theater group over going to play football or hanging out with them. So I was like, no. My priority is I need to do my homework because on Friday I have music rehearsals and on Saturday I have dance and theater. So I have to be good during the week.
Right.
And that was my priority. So that was very clear. My sisters were in the same boat. So my younger sisters were also joining it. So it was a kind of a family thing. We all love being part of it. When people ask me, or my parents' friends would ask me, oh, so what are you going to do when you grow up? And I was like, well, I'm going to be an actor. So that was very clear. Like I always said it when I was very young. But when I finished secondary school, something in my mind went, oh, maybe I need to do something else. So I decided to study electronics and to be an electronic technician. And that wasn't my parents telling me. My dad happened to be an electronic technician. That's why I chose that career. But it wasn't him telling me. In his mind, I was going to focus on being a performer.
Right.
And so it confused him. It's kind of the opposite story that normally a lot of people
Right.
have.
Yeah.
For my dad was like, what's wrong? You're going to be an actor. Why are you going to do electronics?
Yeah.
I was like, well, maybe I need to have something that helps me, in terms of like work-wise and in terms of money and stuff. And I've seen you and, you've sustained the family through your work. So maybe I can do that. And that was a failure. That was a failure. I did 2 years of it, but I was terrible at it. And not because I didn't understand it in general, because I grew up with my dad, so I would understand it. And a lot of that technical knowledge has helped me later on in my artistic career. But it was a failure because that wasn't where my heart was.
Right.
But I think what happened then was that it was like a little buffer time, because it meant that I spent 2 years doing this, which at the end of the second year, I was like, this is not for me. I want to go to theater school. And then when I applied to theater school, the network of people I met was key for what happened after, which is friends who then, we worked together, we studied together, but I met guys, friends who had this vision. There was this guy who really wanted to leave the country and also wanted to make theater and tour around the world. And that was new for me. Like in the imagination of my family, leaving the country, touring around the world, didn't exist.
Right.
My family never stopped that idea or that dream for me, but they also didn't have any ideas.
Concept
like that. It wasn't in my family's DNA to like leave the country. It was not a possibility. But the friends I met when I finally joined theatre school, they had that spark and their families had that spark. So then they kind of started inviting me and that's what happened. So the first time I left Colombia was to Cuba with that group of friends. We went to a theater festival because one of them was very adamant that we needed to put on a theater show, and that theater show needed to travel around the world. We only went to Cuba, but it was the first time I ever went out with a show. And it was thanks to this friend who kind of like sparked the imagination of us. And a year later, another friend's family told us, why don't you learn English? You should all go and learn English, and you should do it in England. And they kind of put the idea in our minds, and I was like, well, sure, maybe we should learn. Like that just became a thing that they started opening these doors of possibilities and kind of showing me the world that I was ready to go to, but I didn't know, Later, now I can see, of course, this was there for me to experience, but I didn't know, and my family wouldn't know, so it was thanks to them.
This is incredible to me because this is partly why I do this podcast, right? It's called Egbon, which means elder in Yoruba, which is about mentoring people. So every guest is an elder. And what I find through all these conversations is that no one achieves anything on their own.
No.
And we all need elders to kind of give us opportunities or usher on us on a little bit and give us this, this push.
Yeah.
And just to hear that these people were kind of helping you in a way, it's kind of amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Without them, without the support, no, I don't. The imagination, just opening the door to the new world and dropping a dream in your mind or the seed of a dream, that was enough. So I think when I said like doing electronics was not a waste, it needed to happen, is because it created that buffer of time for all of us to be ready at the same time to meet. And then from then on, I studied theater. I did 2 years of theater and acting in Colombia, and that's when I met them. And then the next thing was we decided as a group, 3 of us, to come to England to study English initially, but also to try to make the most out of being here and take the most opportunities.
So how was that experience when you first moved to England?
Well, for me it was crazy because I, to be fair, not even having the possibility of leaving the country for my family meant that I was never even curious. I didn't know what the Big Ben was.
Right.
I didn't know. I had no concept of what to expect in England. When I was in Colombia, I always thought I don't need to learn English because I'm never gonna leave the country. If people come, they should speak Spanish. So why would I bother learning English? By the same token, when I left, I was like, okay, cool. If it's, I put that idea in my mind, so then I have to learn.
Yeah.
So it was crazy just discovering a whole new country. Obviously, the history of England and the empire and everything that's happened here, and the cultural offer. It was just been amazing. But it all started from like complete scratch once again.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. I came with my 2 friends, so 3 of us, but no contacts, no one to like receive us and opening doors for us. So it all began from literally, okay, we're here. We have 1 year to learn English or to improve our English. To be fair, I didn't speak at all. So even to start learning English. And also, let's make the most out of it. And we have to also help pay because we had to borrow money in order to come. So we need to pay that back. So literally was taking every opportunity we had, knock on the door and say, what can I get a job? Can I get a job cleaning? We went to a museum once, a museum of London, and we heard this guy who was talking in Spanish, and he was one of the cleaners. And we were like, maybe we can talk to him, and maybe he can give us a job. We started chatting to him, and yes, he said, oh yeah, I might be needing someone. So he opened in the door and he gave us a job cleaning, and then we started calling people and how can we get another cleaning job? Initially it was cleaning doors. We started getting a job, like literally like knocking on doors, and like that has always been the case. Like knocking on doors and meeting people who then open up new doors and new opportunities. So at first England was just like survive, but it was exciting. Like the survival was exciting.
I mean, I think it's just heroes, I think there's so many people who come and migrate in different countries, and their stories, it's just heroic stories in my opinion, because they eventually make something out of almost nothing. And look at you now, Hollywood, baby. So, and then from there, so how did you get into performing in England then?
So during that first year of learning English, I first of all went to a mime school. So in my training in Colombia, I had all sorts of lessons, including mime, like corporeal mime. Is a very specific mime technique. And our teacher had told us about this school in England. So he said, when you're in England, he found out we were traveling, try to go to this place.
Which school was it?
The International School of Corporeal Mime. It doesn't exist anymore. They left. But they were the latest assistants of Etienne de Creux, who is the French guy who invented corporeal mime, this particular technique. Our teacher in Colombia said, you gotta go and meet Karim and Steven. They are the latest assistants. They're the best at this thing. They have the school in London. During our first year here, obviously, I took the opportunity to go. They had some evening classes sometimes, so I went to a few evening classes where I met them and they met me and met my 2 friends, and they realized we had already some bases because we had been already training the technique. So they knew what we had. And so when we completed our first year of English, then we applied for a visa to stay as students in this school. And the school was accredited, and then we can stay. And so we then started our training. It was a professional training, 4 years we did of training in corporeal mime. And alongside that, I met this company called Mandinga Arts, and they do carnival arts, again, parades.
That's amazing.
And Mandinga Arts is a Colombian artist, Julieta Rubio, and Charles Kimple, who is like Irish, French, British artist. Both of them very much in love with Colombia and the Latin traditions. And so they made their own carnival arts company here. And so I met them, and they did parades and street theater throughout the year. So I met them, they saw me performing, they loved it. In fact, some of my early monkey chimp performance or primate performance were already with them. They kept me already engaged. And then when I was training in mime, during my training time, I also met the Secret Cinema a lot. They were at the very early start of the project, some of the very early shows. For the first one, I was asked if I wanted to come and volunteer. Do you want to come and volunteer? These guys are putting on a show. We turn up at 5. They give you pizza. They give you £20. And we're like, yeah, come on, let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's go. So we went and performed, and they loved it. They like whatever we brought. And at the time, my English was very limited. We just physically interacted. We did Ghostbusters back then, and they made us bellboys in the hotel, in the Sedgwick Hotel. So we took the suitcases and we made a whole clown number for the audience and interacted with the audience, and the directors loved it. They were like, who are these guys? Bring them back. And so it started a relationship with that. So I started like knocking on doors again and taking opportunities. And the other thing I did was I joined the Old Vic. At the time, the Old Vic did shows where they combined community performers with professional performers. And so I did one of those, which was called Branded. And I joined as a community performer, as part of the ensemble of movers. And then obviously I was part of the movement-based performance. So I just carried on kind of taking on every opportunity I saw. And from then on, each thing developed into quite a large relationship, which particularly with Secret Cinema brought me to direct very large scale shows later on.
12 years in, and you've done all these shows. What was the most exciting one that you did? Because I know you did Moulin Rouge, you did Back to the Future, you did Ghostbusters. Like you did so many of them.
Yeah, I did 12 years.
Star
of
Wars.
Shows. Yeah, we did Star Wars as well. In my experience with Secret Cinema, there were different phases. At the start, it was very cult-like. So people didn't really know what the film was, and we made everything a lot more secret. The company was smaller, so everything felt a little bit more like we had to make it happen. And set and decorations weren't that expensive or that elaborate, more than expensive at that time. So some of the shows we did back then were really special. One of them was Battle of Algiers, which is about the Algerian Revolution. And we did the film, and we did the Secret Cinema version of it at the tunnel, near the Old Vic tunnels, or what was in Waterloo, just underneath the rails. There are some tunnels there, and we used the tunnels to create that film. And that was very special because, again, it was very beautifully lit. The theme was strong about the Algerian Revolution, which for me was I felt proud to be part of that show. But the impact with the audience was really strong. Then that was back then. Then there was a phase where it started growing, and then another exciting show was the Shawshank Redemption. There was a little bit more development. The company had grown. It was a lot more popular, and then Secret Cinema recreated the prison. But in terms of interaction with the audience, it was really, really strong because the audience, they all had to go to a court hearing, and they all were found guilty. Were put on a bus. The bus was completely blinded. You couldn't see where you were taken. And then you ended up in this prison, which was an old Victorian school near Victoria Park. And then as they came in, they were told to take their clothes off and put on a uniform. So every single audience member had to put on a uniform, which meant the audience you didn't know who was an audience and who was a performer. And so it was really strong. And the film itself is beautiful. So then the stories around the film, what it is about, is great. So that was really special. And then of the larger shows, when it then became really big and we did outdoor shows for 4,000 people a day, Back to the Future. Definitely Back to the Future was really, really special. Again, that was in 2014. So that's 12 years ago? 11 years ago? Right, so I was in my 20s. And then I was performance director for that show. So
that's incredible.
So we had a team of 70 actors, about other 200 volunteers, global performers we call it, as in they weren't the main cast, but they were cast that were in the bars or the restaurants or the other shops. So it was a very large cast, lots of people in the audience. We had cars going around, we had the DeLorean appearing. So having to kind of map the whole performance journey and create scenes and also create the stunt moments. Obviously, I work with a group of people, very professionals, and as part of the performance team, there was also other performance directors like Lucy Ridley and Joe Hafton. So we work collaboratively, but I had a lot of that responsibility as the main performance director for that one show.
I can see how that has shaped your voice in terms of how you craft pieces for immersive shows and just pieces in general. So how do you strike that balance between what you want the audience to feel and what you want the audience to do when you're crafting an immersive show?
I think for me, in immersive, is like when you travel to a new country, right? When you travel to a new country, it's not your country. You have to understand the rules of this new place, but you have agency, right? You have the possibility of like, oh, I'm going to choose to go to this restaurant or to this event, and there you meet people. That's okay, because you can edit it. So when I'm making these immersive shows, for me, the audience is at the heart of the experience. They are the hero of the show. And I'm trying to create a show thinking about the audience journey as opposed to the main character's journey.
Right.
So in a normal film, you will see the hero's journey. That's the main characters. So in a theater play or in a book, normally it's that one character that we're following, which is right. You need an anchor and a character that take you to the story. In immersive, that's true, but for me, the journey that matters the most is the audience journey. What do they go through? So then what you do is you curate experiences around them. So where do they go? Where do they start? Who do they meet first? What do they smell when they walk in? How do they get a little discombobulated as well? That's also part of it. Oh, where do I go? And who is there to fish them and take them in so that they experience something new? And how each person's journey is different. And so at the end of the night, I should be able to say, oh my God, my story was fantastic because I met this character and I did this and I witnessed that part and I got involved in this action. But your friend will say, oh no, I did the opposite. I went there. Like, so it's my story. What matters is what the audience journey, what your own journey, to me, that's what matters the most. Now, it's not easy to craft when you're talking about 4,000 people or even 700 people, like in Rumble when we did our show,
I
Rumble
know.
in the Jungle. It's not easy to get those individual journeys one at a time, but then I have that at heart. And so then obviously I start creating around it and making sure that the story is told, because sure, there is one main character of the story, which is not the audience, but even though I want the audience to feel like they are the main character. So, but you still have to tell the story, and you still have to make sure that you give people enough space to feel, to see the spectacle, to feel like that something has blown them away, and give them enough surprises. It's like, how can we open up a new surprise? Something else that you didn't expect. Okay, cool. You didn't realize there was this other whole room that you could see, or you didn't realize there was going to be this whole new concert. You thought it was going to be a little bit of music, but suddenly, wow, you got this spectacle happening and you're amazed. Or this one character that comes and talks to you, and then you're like, I didn't expect that to happen. And it's just how can you keep giving surprises as this show goes.
I can see all of that in how you crafted Rumble in the Jungle, which was an incredible piece about the Muhammad Ali's fight in Zaire. And I think you did a fantastic job, and you brought together an amazing group of people. And I mean, how was that working on the show for you, and how did it come about?
Yeah, Rumble in the Jungle was really special because it was the first large immersive show that I did outside Secret Cinema. I had done other immersive pieces, but they were smaller pieces. This was the first large-scale piece. I was the lead creative director, and so I had a lot more agency and a lot more space to say, this is what I think we should do. And what was really special, well, there were so many things special about that, but it started with the freedom to create. From the guys who ran Rematch Live, they totally trusted me. They trusted my history, what I've done, and how the vision came about. So when I proposed to them, this is how I think the show should play, they loved it. And they had very little, they never said no to the ideas. They were always excited. So the parameters were about, how you make sure this works with the budget or the location, or how many actors that we actually can have. It was more about fitting the ideas to the parameters. But there was never red tape, and I think that was very unique. I think I've had experiences with many other companies or sometimes commercial projects where you have a client and they want this and they want it, and you're like, that's not gonna work, but you have to give it to them because that's what they want, and it becomes so much red tape. In terms of them, it was really special. Like, I really respect the space. They gave me the space to create. They understood that I had years of history making this, and they respected that. But also it was special bringing people from the Congolese community to talk about what we need to speak. So we brought cultural advisors from early on to give us information of what was important to be said within the story, that it wasn't just about Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Yes, they were the heroes, and we were going to definitely celebrate them, and we did. but how could we also celebrate the culture? How could we celebrate Congolese culture? How could we celebrate the Pan-African culture and the Black culture globally? So when trying to think about that, it was like, okay, you got the concert, for example. So you got the music concert. There's so many people played in Zaire 74 in that concert, and so many great stars. But how can we have someone that represents the Pan-African community globally? So we wanted to have Celia Cruz, who represented the South American part of the Pan-African community, and also we needed to have forgot the name.
James Brown.
James
They
Brown.
also need to have
James Brown and all the other different key artists that represented. So it was about trying to make sure there was enough representation, and so was in the cast. If you look at the story, when you look at all the documentaries and when you look at all the books about it, there's very little female characters in it. So again, for us was like, it's not like women didn't exist. Of course, it's a very male-dominated story, but we still need to have the point of view from the female story. So how can we create characters that can tell us about that story? So we created these narrators, and we tried to bring as many of those characters to exist. So I think for me, sure, I am not from an African country, but my surname is Umba. Umba is an African surname. In fact, most of the community who has that name is in Congo. That's where most people have that surname, Umba. But I'm also from a very marginalized community in Colombia, in the UK. Sorry, I'm from a marginalized community in the UK. And the Latin American community in the UK is not even accounted for in the census. We don't even exist in terms of like legal breakdown of who is in the country. We're not accounted for. So I understand what it is not to be seen, what it is having to fight for representation, fight for diversity. So in a way, sure, even I wasn't myself from an African country or from Congo, I totally understood the need to try to bring the right people around us.
Yeah, I think it was a beautifully crafted show. The audience loved it. I think it was fantastic, and you did an incredible job. You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
And I love how in that show and so many other shows and all the work that you do with Umba Arts as well, there's always a message. Which I think it's fantastic. It's the best of both worlds, How did Terminal 1 come into play?
Terminal 1 was great. Terminal 1, which happens in Glastonbury, and this is a new stage part of Glastonbury. It's been running for 2 years. It's meant to be there for another 3 more years. And it's a stage celebrated migration. This came about because Oriana, who was one of the curators, the artist curators of the piece, came to see me performing at the National Theatre with Kin, which is a piece by Gecko Theatre, and Kin is about migration. And we worked on that show for about 4 years with Gecko Theatre, and the climax of our making.
Such a moving show, and incredible movement work. I mean, I can only imagine how tired you guys were at the end of every show. It was like non-stop.
Yes.
But beautiful show.
Absolutely.
So that's how you met Oriana?
So Oriana came to see it. Oriana was already helping curate the piece, Terminal 1. And so a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Xiomara, recommended me to Oriana. She said, "Oh, you're looking for someone to help you with that. You should come and see the show. And you should check out Miguel's work, because he has a lot of experience in immersive theatre." So then once she came to see the show, she was like, "Oh yeah, this is the perfect person to bring on board." Because sure, I had just done a piece about migration. I'm a migrant myself, so I really care about the subject matter. But also I have plenty of experience in immersive theatre, so it's perfect. It worked out really well for them, because they had a lot of different visual artists, some very well-known visual artists, but they also wanted to make the piece immersive from a theatrical perspective. And I was able to bring that through you, through the performers. Wow. And then, for those who don't know, Cosim was involved in Rumble in the Jungle and also Terminal 1.
Well, it's because of the kindness of his heart. but truly an amazing show as well, where the audience... So basically Terminal 1 was about... Or do you want to tell more about the show?
You do, please.
No, Terminal 1 was about flipping migration on its head. So basically the whole audience, which is predominantly white, in Glastonbury, gets to experience what it's like to come into a space where you're not the majority, and you may not be wanted. So you kind of get to experience what it's like to move to the US or to move to the UK as a migrant in a place where you don't speak the language, you don't understand what's happening, and you're just being treated as
an unwanted person.
yes, basically, yeah. And truly, the way you crafted the show, the way audience members kind of responded to everything, and it grew each year. I can only imagine what happens, the following year. I think it's going to be even bigger. But how happy were you with the result? And
oh no, with a Terminal 1 feels so special. So and I'm in terms of being happy, 100%, 100% happy. I think I'm hoping that we're able to take the piece outside Glastonbury, because it feels, especially in the current climate with the conversation about migration, it feels like it's important to be sharing that with the rest of England, the rest of the UK, and with the world. You've said it a number of times in the US, for example. If we could take it there as well, it is challenging. It's not easy, precisely because of what's going on. It's not going to be easy to put that out there in the public. But at the same time, I think it's important that people understand because the thing with the work that I do is, I realized this through doing one of my solo shows in 2017, Stardust. In the show, I told so much information about a particular subject, and I can talk about that in a minute. But that information is already online. It's already in documentaries. It's already everywhere. So it's not about information. It's about that connection that comes through the gut. It's how you connect with people from a visceral, emotional place. The minute someone opens up emotionally to you, then they are ready to receive information, and then they're ready to empathize. But as long as they are close emotionally and nothing connects them here in the gut, you can't tell them all facts that you want, and you can be 1000% right, and they can be 1000% wrong, and it doesn't matter. You're not gonna get through them, or they're not gonna get through you if things are the other way around.
And that's the beauty of storytelling. I think you're able to get people to put themselves in someone else's shoes.
Yes.
And I think it's even better in an immersive piece, because they're there, and they have to kind of go through the experience, and they kind of face what's happening. And that's the beauty of storytelling. It goes beyond something that's logical. It's something that becomes lived, even if it's not lived to the full extent, even if it's just for a few minutes, a couple hours, but you live it, and suddenly you're like, wow.
Yeah, at that point, your body actually felt it. Your body actually, and the minute you see someone, when it's in theater, when you see someone next to you going through a very felt visceral experience, you're feeling it. Like your body is actually producing the same chemicals, because you're empathizing. We all have that, unless you're not, unless you're a psycho or a narcissist, in which case you don't have that. But if you're not a narcissist, you see someone suffering, you're going to feel it. And so theater, and then immersive theater, allows for the audience to be put in that place. But I think for me, what works, and what seems to have worked every time, is that it never comes from a place of wanting to punish an audience member. It's never been my intention. And in fact, I remember coming to tell the cast, just easy, because we got carried away. We could easily get carried away when we feel we got power. And that's natural as well. The minute you put in a position of power, even if you're just a security person, that's your power, and you're gonna inflict that power. You're gonna use that power. But for me, it was like, it's not about that. It's about allowing the audience to connect, because we don't want to punish them. We just want them to feel. And so it's about how you create enough moments in the experience to first disarm, like, okay, let's just all be in the same level. Let's take out where you come from and your preconceived ideas. Let's get them out, so that you get into a place, give you enough emotional, challenge you emotionally to start, and then embrace you, then hold you enough and really touch your heart, so that then you actually go, oh, this really touched me deeply. And I think that's partly what we did with Terminal 1. The first couple of scenes are quite heavy, and then the audience feel like challenged, and they disarm, but also they start feeling a bit strange, and then on the third scene, there is this story that happens, and then there is this very human connection, and suddenly people were in tears.
Oh yeah, it's truly moving. But hey, you crafted it.
Yeah. And so also this year so for Glastonbury we had the immersive experience, which is audience go from one room to the other. It's 4 containers stacked on top of each other. They create this one journey that the audience have to go through. But then this year we also had 5 performers doing more walkabout. interactions and a little bit more impromptu with the audience, and that was also very exciting. We were
Very
able
exciting.
to push a little bit the boundaries there with some of the characters that we brought on board. So what I'm hoping is that if we could replicate some of that outside, or then maybe have more characters next time we do it.
I think
that'd be
it's only
great.
going to grow, and I think there's a blueprint there for a really big show, especially. I mean, it's already a big show, but especially with what's happening out there and all the talks about migrations and migrants and what they bring and what they take. And I wanted to talk a bit more about then you going to Hollywood.
Hollywood. Here
Look
we
at you. So
go.
you got to be into this amazing part of this amazing production,
Yes.
which is a Hollywood movie with Paramount Pictures called Primate, and you get to be the Primate.
I get to be the primate. Yeah.
How was how was that experience for you? How did you first of all, how did you get involved?
Yes.
And then how was that experience for you?
Yeah, so first of all, Primate is coming to cinemas in January the 9th. So the trailer was just released last week, which is very exciting. And then we got to see the first images of Ben, who is the hero. No, not the hero.
It depends on your perspective, but
It
yeah.
depends on your perspective. I want to call him the hero. Yeah, it's a classic Monster in the House film. So, audiences will know what's about normally. I came on board through context, and that's something interesting as well. It's always been through context, a lot of the work. So a friend of mine who was Joss Carter, who was supporting Alex Reynolds, who is the movement director of the piece, he was assisting her and helping her reach out for performers. So the film, the main thing about the film is that all the effects are practical, and this is something that the director Johannes Roberts celebrates a lot. His vision was always to make a horror film with practical effects, which in the age of AI and CGI is a big bet, but also really bold. Seems very bold, even though it's kind of like back to basics, but actually it's really bold and fun. So he wanted to have all effects practical, which meant that they needed to have someone who was able to perform, obviously have the physicality of the chimpanzee, but also be able to be small enough so that, playing against the other characters, you could actually believe in the character. My friend just contacted me because he knew I was physically able and trained, but also he knew I was short. So he said, "How tall are you?" And I said, 5'2". He said, "Can you be 5?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I shrank. And I was like, "Yeah, I can."
I can only imagine the work you do in this piece, because you're such an amazing physical performer, and I've seen what you do on stage, and your history, professional history, shows that. How many hours did you spend watching Chimps videos?
Yeah, so many hours. I don't know how many, but yes, a lot of like all the possible videos and documentaries out there. As part of the research, for sure, went to the zoo as well. And my girlfriend, she said that I should not perform, should not do more monkeying around in the house, no more character work in the house. Because I was very excited. And the thing is, like, it's not the first time I had done a primate-like role. I had many years of experience through all the carnival arts that I had done and the street theater. I had done many versions of it. For this one, I had to hone the specificity of the chimpanzees, and I think that was the most exciting part, working with movement director, working by myself as well, just honing the specificity in terms of movement. And so it's going to be there. I mean, I'm waiting to see when people watch it.
I mean, 81 million views
Yeah.
across platforms on the first day. I think people are gonna love it, and I think when they see your work, you're gonna become a superstar. I mean, you're already a star, but you're
Thank
gonna
you.
become a superstar.
Well, I really hope so. And yes, I really.
I think it's gonna go well. Now, thinking back to your journey, because you coming from Bogota, then moving to the UK, and now being in a big Hollywood movie, what have you learned along the way, and what would you tell a younger version of yourself?
I think for me is just really be open to all the opportunities. I think that's the main thing. Just be always open-hearted and just ready to take what the world has for you. And that's interesting that it's not for a younger self, just even for myself right now. I feel like, cool, this new thing just happened, but at the same time, what's next? I'm also wondering what's my next move, how am I going to be focusing my life and my career. But when I look back, a lot of the things that have happened to me have come to me. In a way, I mean, my path and what I've done consistently is that every time I go into something, I give it all. I put my full heart. I work 150 to 100%. I give more than I'm expected to give. That's not just blowing my own horns. That's the feedback I receive in every job that I do. It's like there is an expectation of what you're meant to deliver, but I always do a bit of extra.
Right.
I always work extra hours, put more effort, put more detail and more attention. That's been my mantra always. Just give as much as you can. So that's how I approach anything that I do. And then through doing that, then when things come, people fall in love with that, and then they think of you for the next thing, or they call you back, and so then new opportunities arise. Someone wants to work with you again because they know how much you give and how much value you can add to a project. For me, is just be prepared to take on what the universe brings you, but make sure that anything that you do, you give you 150%. And that's not, I say that to myself. I say that to my younger self. I say that to my young niece who is visiting right now from Colombia. But I also have a youth group.
Yes.
I run a youth group, which is the Latinx Youth Theatre, and we've been able to run the group for 3 years, where we train young Latinos in the UK in theatre and performing arts. Not all of them will be performers, but it's also a youth group similar to the one
that you were part of.
I was part of when I was young. And then we've been able to take them to the theatre. They've been to the National Theatre. They went to see me at the National Theatre, which was really special. They've been able to see kind of this how we operate, not just me, but the whole Latin community as well, and migrant performers. And I insist on them just my teacher in Colombia, where my dance teacher when I was young, she would say to us when we started dancing, she would say, just move it, it's yours. Mueva lo que es suyo. Like, that would be her thing. Just move it, it's yours, like with this enthusiasm. And I think that stayed throughout.
Yeah.
Just move it, it's yours. Just do it, it's yours. Just give it all, just have fun, just shine your energy out there, because that's going to reflect, and the ripple effects will be
And
felt.
people will feel that as
People
well.
will
Yeah.
feel that, yeah.
Well, I can attest to that, and to your passion, and to the bigness of your heart, and how much you put into it, and how much you care. I think it's one of the best things about knowing you, really. It's not just the work you do professionally, but really the person that you are. And you just want to be around you, and just want to give to you, and just want to go the extra mile, because you're such a kind person and such a giving person yourself. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just wondering if you could give us a little bend, just a little bend, anything that you want to give us that
The thing
could
is,
be interesting.
the Ben's voice has been dubbed already, but I had to work on. Yeah.
And I think they're only going to get better and better as you do Primate 2 and Primate 3.
Dear Lord.
But also all that frustration, all that constraints, also, it sounds to me like what it would be like being a chimp in a world of humans, Just, it's not your world, and you have to you have to try to learn a language that you don't really understand, try to communicate in a way that it's not really yours, and then having to deal with all this stuff that you don't, so I think it's, you got to actually be a chimp for a little bit.
It's interesting, and chimps
some
are such a
ways.
beautiful creatures and so intelligent, and I don't think we humans are we don't have the moral high ground to judge chimpanzees. For some of them, some communities of chimpanzees are violent, but I don't think we have the moral high ground to judge them. I think we're a lot more violent, and we're supposed to be more civilized, right? But yes, I think if people, I've seen some comments already, and people shouldn't have chimp pets, and then that's true.
Yeah, well,
That is true.
Yeah,
and that's not to do with the film. That's to do with that's true in life. You shouldn't have a pet, a wild animal, so intelligent and so beautiful as your pet. You just should leave them there in their environment.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. Well, I feel like there's so much more we can get into.
Yeah, I mean,
but
listen, we should come back to do once the film is out.
Yeah, and we can do a deep dive.
And we can
into-
really go and deep dive, and we can talk a
And-
lot more. I think for now, I should keep some of the.
But I also don't know if
mystery.
I'll be able to afford you at the time when it comes out.
don't
You know what I'm
worry,
saying?
of course you will. Oh, don't worry, friends rates.
No, but thank you so much for coming
Thank
in.
you,
It
man.
was such a pleasure to talk to you, to get to know more about you.
Yeah, it's true.
I think we basically touched upon everything. Let's do round 2.
Let's do round 2.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Miguel.
Thank you. In the
Thank
spirit
you
of
so much.
Rumble in the Jungle, let's do round 2.
Yeah, let's do round 2. Hey, we don't know where round 2 might take us anyways. We'll see.
Okay.
Thank you, Miguel.
Gracias.